Hello and welcome to my review of Incredibles 2. Not The Incredibles 2. They dropped the for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. But outside of that, this was a really good movie. I think it's sort of a common consensus. I'm sorry, this is not scripted. It's sort of common consensus at this point that this movie, Incredibles 2, is the best Pixar sequel outside of the Toy Story franchise. Though we'll see how Toy Story 4 goes. Come to think of it, we didn't see a trailer or a TV spot for Toy Story 4 in front of this. Usually they put those in front. But they're saving the Toy Story 4 stuff, even though that's supposed to be the next movie. We'll see what happens. I want to be a little bit optimistic after this one. There is a bug on my computer as I am recording this. Yeah, no edits! I will keep this video the same without edits. The bug is back! Ugh. Okay, so that was an edit, and the bug appears to be gone now. This is why I gotta do stuff unscripted, because you live for the mistakes. The mistakes make the video entertaining. Are you not entertained? I'm talking about Incredibles 2 now. Specifically, there was no teaser for Toy Story 4. All we got instead were a bunch of really long-running trailers, and a lot of movies to reflect on the poor state of cinema. My mom was like, they played the trailer for that movie with the robot dog, Axel, that's the name, and then immediately afterwards they played the trailer for Bumblebee, and my mom leaned over like, those look like the same exact movie, and I'm like, you were correct. But anyway, Incredibles 2. So, I love Pixar, obviously. I've seen every Pixar film, even the ones that aren't so good. Pixar has basically got my soul for life. I will never not see a Pixar movie, if I can. Especially after their last film, Coco, in like 6 months, I think maybe even less, I officially was ready to declare it my favorite movie, period. And some of you may judge me for that, but I don't care. I've seen it so many times now. I don't know. It came late, but better late than never, and I will cherish this movie in my heart forever. In every beat of my proud corazon. No. And that was not good singing, by the way. Good. Okay, I'm getting off topic. We're getting off topic. Incredibles 2. See, this is why you watch the video, because you like the mistakes, huh? Incredibles 2. So the movie picks up right where the first one left off, and I really like the first one as a movie. I watched it. I rewatched it a week ago to prepare for this. My mom still had not seen the first one at that point, so she was turned off by the violence when it first came out. So, first one really holds up. The one thing about the first one is, I consider The Incredibles to be a very, very good superhero movie with a lot of heart and action and humor, all that stuff. I don't consider the film to be a kid's movie. It just is it's really dull. A guy attempts suicide near the beginning of that movie. Like, there are so many adult overtones. And this one I think might be a little bit more child-friendly, but it still is very, very mature. So if you want to take your kids, you can, but I don't know. And the first Incredible movie came out before superhero movies were everywhere. And I think even in today's completely oversaturated market, it is good to see this movie. And what I realized as I thought about it coming out of the theater is that what makes this movie good is not the story. The story of Helen getting to go on this superhero expedition and the dad staying home and watching the kids, it could have been done better. It's good. It's fine. It's serviceable. It's a good story. The reason that this movie works, and the reason that the first movie works, comes to think of it, is the characters. This is a very character-driven narrative. That bug is back. I am so sorry. But really, we watch the first movie and the second movie because of the characters, because of the Parr family. This is a great family, and I think a lot of us can have relations. I'm sorry, I have to get rid of this bug. Okay, I turned the light on in the room, which means the bug is going to be drawn to something other than the bright computer screen. Yeah, this review of Incredibles 2 will go on! Hopefully. So, what was I talking about? Okay, the parts. So, we can all relate to this family dynamic. Even as we're coming out of the theater, I feel that there is a similar family dynamic in my own family, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. I am not gonna draw any parallels between my own family. I'm not gonna say how many members I have in my family. That is personal information, and really, this review has so many edits because I totally said something and then I'm like, oh shit, I shouldn't say that to the internet, and I just said, oh my god, I'm gonna have to start scripting these reviews and editing these reviews. I really am gonna have to start scripting these things, aren't I? Oh geez, this is probably the most entertaining review of Incredibles 2 you've seen this week, so there's that. And back to the point. The Parr family. So the Parr family, they have a great family dynamic, and I think we all sort of groaned when we heard what the premise was going to be. That it's pushing girl power and changing gender roles, and we've seen this stuff before. But the way they do it in this film works. It feels like a real family dynamic, and Mr. Incredible doesn't really feel cheated, like he's cheated out of this adventure that he was trying to go on. Because that's what I said. I'm like, isn't the whole first movie about him getting back in the game? Like, why would you do this to him? But then it actually makes sense when you stop to think about it. Because really, he has to learn to be a better father. That the mom was the one who was in this position at the beginning, and I think it's not the most functional family in the world, but with these superpowers, you kind of have to expect that. And that's really what I love about not only the first movie, but this movie too, is that the family relationships feel very real, and the family feels very real. It doesn't feel like they dumbed it down for kids. It feels like a real, like, the same kind of family that you would see in real life. Maybe not to the extent of like a Tennessee Williams drama where everyone's super tortured. No, this is just, this isn't like the most dysfunctional family you've ever seen, but they're still not perfect, and they're still very flawed, and they still have to deal with each other and each other's flaws. I liked, like, there was a conversation between Bob and Helen early in the film, I think when they're sitting by the pool, and I think that conversation is continued later. All the interactions between Bob and Helen seemed very real, like a real-life married couple, and all the interactions between parents and their kids felt genuine. There was a whole scene where like Violet is upset, and the dad's like, talk to me, and Violet's like, you wouldn't understand. There's a lot of things I'm sure parents will laugh at because it doesn't really feel like they're making fun of these tropes. It feels like they're just portraying a family dynamic as it exists in the real world. And that this is just a family that's going through a bit of a difficult situation right now, and they just have to learn to work with each other, and they also happen to be superheroes. Like, that's the thing about this and The Dark Knight and Logan, all the really good superhero movies out there, is that the best superhero movies are about people who just happen to be superheroes. The best superhero movies are about people who go through real problems, real dilemmas, real character growth, and they also happen to fight crime. That's what I believe to be the definitive way of how to make a good superhero movie. And especially in today's overcrowded market. I feel that it's best that this movie continues where the first film left off, and it also what I like about it is that there are definitely a lot of callbacks, but usually in a lot of sequels, especially sequels made years and years after the original, like all the callbacks are really, really forced. Like, hey, remember this? Or hey, remember when we did that? Wink, wink, wink. Like this, there are definitely callbacks, but they're very subtle. They're very subtle. Like Helen saying, "Oh, I'm such a hypocrite. I used to call my husband out on doing the same thing that I'm doing now," or some of the things with Edna. Like it's not just on the one hand you're going, "Hey, I recognize that," but on the other hand, it works believably with the story, and they're not stopping the movie just so they can be like, "Hey, remember this?" Uh, yeah, it doesn't feel that way. A lot of sequels sort of get this idea in their head that they've got to constantly reference the first movie so that they can fool you into thinking that that's what you're watching. And here, they don't reference, well, they do reference individual things, but it's more about it's the same feel. That it's the first movie, there is a superhero plot and a take over the world plot and all that stuff. And by the way, I do think that the only real flaw that this movie has is that the main plot of superheroing is not all that compelling. And also, there is a surprise late in the film that is pretty easy to figure out. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's not too difficult to see where this is going to go. So there's that. But honestly, I did not mind that. I genuinely enjoyed watching this movie, and if they made a third, I would definitely go see it. It's really just we love these movies because of the characters, and both the first movie and the second movie are very character-driven stories. That some stories are focused primarily on the narrative and the plot, and that's fine. But I think why this sequel works better than something like Finding Dory, which I liked Finding Dory. And considering how Finding Nemo is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I didn't think that they could properly do a sequel, it's better than it had any right to be. But I'm not going to watch it over and over again and analyze it the way that I do Finding Nemo. But I think The Incredibles 2 is a better movie. And the reason I think that is because it's not just trying to make up a new story while also build on the themes of the previous story. It's doing that, but its main priority is the characters. We see, like, where the characters, this is where we left them off. And, it's not just, we're not taking the characters and bringing them back to square one just so they can learn the same lesson over again, which is another bad trap that a lot of sequels fall into. These characters feel like they're growing and they're evolving as people. They really do feel like people, like human beings, like adult human beings. And the action in the movie is very well done. The lighting, and of course the animation is good, and the sound design, and the music, and all the stuff that you know is going to be amazing in every Pixar movie. And add to that the voice acting. This is great voice acting. It's very much a Pixar movie in that regard. It's incredible, no pun intended, to look at. It's really wonderful to look at, and it's got very well technically made, but also has a lot of humor, a lot of heart, and it's good for kids and adults. The only thing that this movie is lacking in the traditional Pixar department is emotion. I mean, there's emotion in the movie, but it's not... No one cried during this movie. I don't think there's going to be any real emotional scene. The first one didn't have a ton of emotion in it either, but just know this is not one that you're going to cry, is what I would say if it were not for that short film that played in front of this movie. I was bawling my eyes out at the end of that short film. It's like Pixar were like, okay, we're going to take all of our emotion that we normally put in the movie, and we're going to just dump it all out in the short. Like, wow. I don't know if this movie's going to win the Oscar for Animated Feature, but I'm definitely picking that short to win Best Animated Short. So, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Incredibles 2 is a great movie. It's a worthy successor to an already great film, and you should see it. It's funny. It's got humor. It's got heart. It's got everything you want. It's not a perfect film. It's not like one of the very best of the best, but it's a Pixar movie, and Pixar's worst is better than most people's best. So that's all I gotta say. Incredibles 2, great film. Go see it.